The Jamaica Stock Exchange is pleased to welcome you to this historic event and the listing of QII on the Jamaica Stock Exchange's main market. And you will notice that if persons have been here before, we always say it is a historic event because the listing of each company is a historic event. But this listing comes today for more than one reason. I'm saying it's historic because it comes today as the world exchanges have united to promote financial literacy and boost financial inclusion by ringing the bell in countries around the world this week, and it starts today. So we see the importance of financial literacy. It is dubbed ringing the bell for literacy. These listings and the support that we are experiencing is in part due to the increased financial literacy which extends to the understanding of the market. Our last two listings, I must make mention of those, Herbert. Our last two listings were in July and in August on the stock exchange, junior market, then main market respectively. And NCB Capital Market, as the lead broker, was the securities broker that took those companies to market. We want to congratulate you. We are pleased with the effort in your bringing companies to market. And you see, it's we talk about July, August, September. I was hoping that you'd follow me with the logic. October, November, and then December, and then create for us probably at the end of the year the best performing stock exchange again. But let us see. We are pleased that companies are enjoying the benefits of both markets and wish to congratulate you. Today, really, we want to extend a warm welcome to QE and all who have come to celebrate this milestone. Let us welcome them. The listing of QE is especially important to us because as we add more companies to our board, this further supports and validates our 50th year of celebration and our thrust to continue to provide companies with a conduit for public offers and investors with a trustworthy portal for secondary market trading. The prospectus by QE Investment Limited was published on September 9. The offer opened on September 16 and closed on September 18. And the offer, I'm sure John will tell us a little bit more about that, but we are glad that it was subscribed, fully subscribed, and oversubscribed. The company now has a total of 4,731 shareholders. And that is important because what we are seeing is that more and more investors are investing in companies. So you have a larger and larger register and more people to account to. Yes, so that is important. We want to also encourage companies that they have dialogue. QE start to have dialogue with your investors. The company was successful in its application to list its shares on the JSE main market at an invitation price of $1.35, and when it begins trading, it will trade under the symbol QII. So QII is the fifth new company to list its shares on the JSE market in 2019. Increasing, and that's for the main market, increasing the total companies on the market to 45. I think we can do better. John, you're going to have to help us, Herbert, to do better than 45 companies on the main market, including QE, though the securities on the main market is 58, and the total number of securities on the main and junior amounts to 120. Including the 1.1 billion raised by QE, approximately 15.6 billion has been raised since 2019, and that is good. Yes, compared to probably even last year, that is a good amount that is raised, but we want to see more raise of the market because we know that the liquidity is there. As of September 27, 2019, now here again is why QE is special to us. The market capitalization of the main market amounted to $1.903 trillion. The market capitalization of QE amounts to 1.84 billion. Therefore, the market capitalization on the main market will increase to 1.904. But because of this listing today, we are over the 2 trillion mark. I'm telling you, always when there is a listing, there is an important milestone. Yes, I don't know why, but that is the case. The listing of QE comes at a time when rating agency Standard & Poor's has upgraded Jamaica from B to B+, and when investors are definitely interested in the markets, and we are inviting now companies to take advantage of how the economy is going. It is not often that both sides of the coin seem to be so well aligned. So we are encouraging that, but we are also encouraging the government. We always take this opportunity to say to them, continue to divest your companies through the market. I'm pleased to inform that QE Securities will find its place in our financial index. Am I correct about that, John? Which since its launch in March 1 has demonstrated an upward movement to close last Friday at 141.26 points, up by 41.33% since we launched that index. It tells you something. You know, it really tells you 41.33%. And I'm going to ask you to stay tuned.
Not 50.5.
Was that what your calculation gave you?
I just wondered if it's equated to the same.
I don't know. I'm a little mathematically challenged, John, but you can tell me. Stay tuned also for the debut tomorrow, October 1, of the JC Manufacturing and Distribution Index. Again, we welcome QE to the market and wish them a successful journey with their shareholders. And in closing, we wish to take this opportunity to invite you to celebrate with us next week how far we have come, but just how much we need to do to promote investor awareness and financial inclusion. Come join us starting Saturday, October 5 through October 11 as we host the JC National Investor Education Week. We always put you at the center of our planning, and as a result, our doors are always open to you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Street Forest. Went to a lot of milestones. Right, market capitalization. Wow, that's very good. John, you have been talking, so it's your time now. To give us remarks. We're going to be welcoming Mr. John Jackson, Chairman of QE Investments Limited, right? Yes. Put your hands together for him, please.
I'm extremely pleased that I'm associated with QE, and in a sense, John Mahfood is partially to blame for that, because unbeknown to me, he invited me to be a director and mentor of Jamaica Teas. And to this day, I'm not quite sure why he invited me, but here I am. So this is Street Forest, Managing Director of Jamaica Stock Exchange, other representative of the Stock Exchange, fellow directors of QWI, some who are here and some who are not here. With us this morning is John Mafood and Cameron Burnett. I gather Malcolm McDonald should be here, but I don't think I've seen him. David Stevens, who is one of the founding directors. He unfortunately would love to have been here, but he has family matters to attend to, but his spirit is with us. And I mentioned Cameron already. Carl Carby, I think, is traveling today. Members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning. Thanks for joining us on this momentous occasion. And thanks also to the many persons and entities who made QE IPO a resounding success. I'd like to, and I hope I don't offend anybody by leaving out their names or their contributions, but Cameron Burnett stands out substantially as far as I'm concerned. Once we decided to go, he started to work with it. And I, being a sometimes troublesome person, exacting person, demanded of him changes that he would sometimes prefer not be involved in, but at the end, we all came through, and but he actually, maybe not sleepless night, I'm not sure, but certainly spent a considerable amount of time putting the thing together, and we made changes along the way. And it's not easy when you have a document to change things here, you change something here and something else shifts elsewhere, and it just becomes quite taxing. But in the end, we pulled through. Janet Morrison of Heart Mirrored Fata, you can see her hair has gotten red since QE came on, because we were chopping and changing things, and we had to go to various agencies trying to get things sorted out so we could be here today. Simone Hudson Bernard, who stands beside me, she has been a Trojan and has been the coordinator for this IPO and the listing and the raising of funds. And I must commend NCB Capital Markets, maybe NCB, because the Go IPO, am I calling the name correctly, is to be commended for facilitating the quick listing, relatively speaking, of this, of QWI in, what, 2 weeks or less than 2 weeks? That's tremendous, and one hopes somehow that the stock exchange get all the brokers who are listing to embrace this platform or some platform that will facilitate much speedier listing and completion of listings on the exchange, because it's not fair for investors to have their funds tied up. I mean, when it's fully subscribed is one thing, if it's just fully subscribed. But when it's oversubscribed, as has happened in our case, and they have their money tied up, and some of the stock is actually moving, they can't utilize their resources. And that's something that, yes, we're the best stock exchange in terms of performance, but we have to deal with some other things to make sure we are the best when it comes to some other things. So David himself, David Stevens, who is one of the directors, he contributed considerably to the goings on behind the scenes when we were putting the prospectus together. He read it and he made his recommendations and suggestions and what have you. I'd like to give a little bit of history why we are here today. In the mid-1990s, for my sins, I attended one of the AGMs of KIW. And since I like to talk much more than John Mafood likes to talk, they put me on the board. And I stayed there for a few years. The then chairman decided to go in a particular direction. I disagreed and I left. I resigned. And then 2007 or thereabout, Rex James said, John, why don't you come back and serve as a director? And I said, fine, I'll come back if we convert KIW into an investment vehicle rather than to do what they were doing at the time. And he said, fine. Of course, I got back on, and when I got back on, the government had changed, and I don't think I served one meeting under his chairmanship. He had resigned. But eventually, DBJ asked me after some long deliberation behind the scenes, I gather, because they felt that I might not have wanted to divest KIW. And in fact, I gave some challenge to them when I became chairman, because they wanted to be paid out. And I said the company didn't have the capital. They were in deficit and weren't in a position to pay them back. I think they were convinced ultimately. I encouraged them to ask Cartwright to join the board, and he did. And we were able to convert $13 million, mostly into equities, but not into equities initially. And we turned what was $13 million into $60-odd million by the time Jamaica Teas acquired the majority shares in KIW. So the concept was that KIW would have converted the building and built it out into a modern warehouse. But that soon changed after Jamaica Teas acquired the majority shares. And I guess if I were not on the KIW board as chairman, we probably would not be here, because the odds of Jamaica Teas acquiring those shares might have been substantially diminished or non-existent. When we decided to go, so we wanted KIW to be restored to the stock exchange, and we wanted to have gotten it onto the junior market. But since we were told we could not get it onto the junior market because it already was listed on the main market, we took a more radical approach to the whole thing and decided to form a totally new company and move in this direction. So I told John and Cameron that in my view, we can raise $1.5 to $2 billion. I think we're looking at about $500,000,000 or 600 or 700 million at the time. I said we can go for $1.5 to $2 billion. In John's usual way, John says, oh, John Jackson, eternal optimist, he can create miracles where no reality exists. And I actually indicated, and I wrote a paper to indicate that the history of radical improvement to the number of shareholders on stock markets occurred when governments divested their interest in companies. And the major reason for that is those IPOs are usually accompanied by substantial publicity. It happened when we did with NCB, Cement, and Telecommunication of Jamaica. It happened with Wigton. But I did the research, and it happened in England. So in the level of growth in the London Stock Exchange took place when the Thatcher era of divestment took place. So what he told me is that if we publicize the IPO sufficiently and sensitize people to it, then we can stimulate wide interest in it. Essentially, we went on and we decided, based on where the market had reached, that we would have toned down a little bit, and we came down to a low figure. And with minimal arsenal being applied, we have achieved the 1.5 to 2 billion. In fact, I was told we did just over $2 billion in the terms of funds. And of course, you've heard Marlene speak to the fact that we had over 4,700 investors applying for shares and succeeded. I am a strong believer in the ownership of stocks. I've known personally what it can do for the wealth of individuals. I've seen it happening widely across quite a number of individuals and institutions. In our case, the portfolio has moved from, I don't remember what it has moved. We know that it has gone up 50.5% and more actually since March, and we expect it to do. But equities have played a very significant role at Jamaican Teas. And I'm extremely happy that I work for, not that I'm paid, but I work for John Mafood, who understands equity somewhat. Not as much as me, but he understands it. So it makes it far easier to deal with those things. And Cameron is also on the other side to understand. So what I'm saying here this morning is that this country, there are two things. We have spent more money, government has spent more money subsidizing agricultural production than possibly any other form of industry locally. And when government or politicians speak, people talk about real estate. So they want to empower Jamaicans by giving them a piece of land. I was saying to somebody last night, my great-great-grandfather, whatever it is, owned half of Hanover. But now, I don't know if the family plot comprises 5 acres. And not that it is worth anything. I don't even know if we own the family plot anymore. So people get real estate and eventually they sell it off. Because what happens oftentimes, they don't have the capital. Having bought the real estate, they don't have the capital to improve on it. And the one entity, the one system that has demonstrated over a long period of time, and if you doubt me, go back to those persons who bought Bank of Nova Scotia shares at £2 back in 1967 and what it is worth today. We're not pushing the equities market. The government should, at this stage, be talking about a curriculum that deals with financial literature within schools. So we grew up with that. Everybody who is born and has to work has to encounter managing money when they leave school. And some of us had to do it at school. But we are not being taught it. And therefore we make wrong choices. So what we should be talking about is owning equity first, and then when we own equities, we can move on to owning real estate. And it becomes far easier and create a much more prosperous society. I know we talk about, and I'm happy when we talk about Jamaica being the best stock market in the world. That's based on the movement of the index. But I believe Jamaica needs to aim at being not just the best stock market or capital market in terms of price movements of equities, but we need to get to a scenario where there are regulations. The rules and regulations are there to protect, not only protect the investors, but to enhance the market and make the market also the best when it comes to regulation and rules. The policies, in achieving that, we must have regulation and policies that are clear, transparent, and predictable. We cannot build that world-class capital market if when people start to play the game, we find that the referee introduces a new rule into the game. It just cannot work that way. And that, unfortunately, is what has happened and happened in Jamaica. We have to move away from that. We need to move to a predictable thing. We can't rely on government individuals where government regulators are concerned, where individuals sit down and come up with rules. And then those individuals change, and a new set comes, and the rules change because the person has changed. We can't operate that way because government, from what I understand, government entities don't have the resources or have not put themselves in the resources to retain staff members over a long period of time. So the rules have to be more legislated than it being done by individual executive within the organization. One of the things that I'm concerned about is that companies are coming to the market. In our case, we were asked to make projections. In other cases, no projections have been asked for. And I say to people, but directors know more about what the future of the company is likely to be than the ordinary investors. So my recommendation, as sort of to the stock market, is that all IPOs that are raised in fresh capital should have at least a 3-year forecast as to what directors believe is going to be the case. I don't think the 5-year make any sense. 3 years give you a good sense. But no company should list on the exchange where the financial statements are 5 or 6 months old. There's no forecast there, we can't operate a system, a good market that way, where people have to guess as to what is likely to happen, when there's no historical data to go by to indicate what is going on. And then we also have to be careful, because I've been critical of one listing where there's clearly seasonality in the numbers, but that is not disclosed to people. And so therefore we have a lot, maybe not a lot, but there are a number of things. We have come a far way, but we have some things additional to do. So that brings me to the end of my presentation, and I just wish that for QE that we'll have an excellent track record going forward, that the 4,700 shareholders, plus others who did not make it because they felt that we're close too early, if they come on board, that we can deliver for them something that we'll be proud of on the road, and that QE being, in a sense, a unique type of vehicle will demonstrate to the wider populace that if you have ideas, you can bring the ideas to market if it is properly packaged. And again, let me just thank all who have been with us and has facilitated this listing. The FSC, the Office of the Registrar of Companies, Stock Exchange, or auditors, or lawyers, or directors, and Virgin Advertising, who has quietly stayed in the background and has assisted with a number of promotional things. And thanks.
What I would like to add is that we saw this company, QWI, as a unique type of investment where, as John had said before, we had developed an experience in investing in the stock market, and we believe that we gave it attention and a way of approaching it that gave superior returns, and we experienced those returns in both Jamaican Teas and at KIW, and felt that we wanted to focus more on this business by separating it and creating a new entity, and that not only will we benefit from the investment, from the creation of this, but we are sharing that benefit with the 4,700 shareholders that are there. Jamaican Teas and KIW together only will own approximately 33% of the company. We will benefit if the company does well. We don't charge this company management fees, investment fees, as do other similar type companies. And we believe that the individual investors, the small people, are the ones that will have the ease of investment by investing in QWI, and we do the hard work of identifying the appropriate stocks, both in Jamaica, hopefully, and in the US and in Trinidad. So that is how we see it, and we put our money on the line, and we invested ourselves 445 million, I think, of this. So it is now a separate company from Jamaican Teas, and it will get the attention that it deserves. One of the things that I noticed in this process that John alluded to is that it could be easier. I discovered that the Jamaica Stock Exchange has done something to make it easier by allowing brokers to issue the JCSD number themselves. So the stock exchange doesn't have to be involved in the process. But I think if between the Bank of Jamaica and the brokers, they can find a way of making it easier for the small man to open an account, that would make a big difference. I believe a lot of people were left off the process because once we issued the prospectus and uploaded it to the stock exchange, the time between that and opening the invitation and closing it didn't give enough time for the small investors to open their accounts with the brokers. And I think that is one of the big impediments to widening the base of investors. The other thing I noticed in this situation, when we Jamaican Teas 10 years ago listed, we had 300 shareholders and we thought that was pretty good. In fact, a lot of other listings, there were much fewer than 300 shareholders. Today, when QE came to market, a lot of the buzz and the discussion was on social media, and a lot of smaller investments and young people knew about this investment and talked about it online and spread the news rather than the traditional way of newspaper advertising and going out and making presentations to investors, which we did. So the market is changing, and I really would like to see young investors find it easy to get in there and to invest and grow their wealth, as John said, by starting with a $10,000, and each time there's an IPO, adding another one, and so on, and before you know it, when you're ready to retire, if you hold those investments, you're very, very wealthy. I even remember as a young professional in the US, when they started individual retirement accounts in the US for people who wanted to start pension funds. And they said, you know, if you contribute 5 or 10% of your salary to investments, by the time you're ready to retire, you're a multi-millionaire in US terms. We need to get those kinds of conversations out to Jamaican young people so they see, even though you're starting small, if you are systematic, you are going to get there and build your wealth. So I hope that we contribute to the growth of the stock market, and that the Bank of Jamaica and the stockbrokers push hard to change their rules and make it easier. It's too cumbersome now, and it doesn't have to be that way. But thank you very much, everyone, for coming.
Thank you very much, Mr. Food, well said. All right, Andre, it's your time to. We have rules, and you're here. All right, Mr. Andre Tolo, our Chief Regulatory Officer, will be presenting the rule book to Mr. Cameron Burnett, Director, QWI Investment. Put your hands together for them, please.
Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd first like to take the time out to acknowledge the Board of Directors of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, the Board of Directors of QE Investments Limited, members of the media, all those who are in attendance here today to witness the historic achievement of QE Investments Limited. In saying that, I'd like to personally congratulate Q Investments Limited on a successful IPO. When you look at the board, you see experience and knowledgeable people of the in relation to the stock market. And as such, I have every expectation that QA will meet and also surpass the market disclosure standards and transparency and efficiency standards that the stock exchange require. In fact, I just want to bring you into a little secret in terms of the operational side, where quite often there are two directors there, I'm not going to call the names, where we oftentimes receive information in terms of reporting standards being adhered to. And we usually act on them as quickly as possible. And we really encourage this form of participation from all in the market, right? We might disagree at times in terms of what is compliant from what is not compliant. And I heard Mr. Jackson spoke about Mrs. Morrison's gray hair. When I just came to the stock exchange, I was black and Richard and Renard there. If you look closely, mine has blue, and I think Richard is starting to have some gray hair. Renard is starting to have some gray hair. And that is coming from the interactions that we have had. But I want to take the time out. This is where I'm going to disagree with you again now, Mr. Jackson, where I believe that in terms of the IPO rules, I believe that it is one of the most transparent and rules that we have in this rule book, in terms of when one looks at the IPO requirements, you know exactly what is to come. And while we agree that there can be improvements in terms of forecasts, information in terms of the treatment of reserve shares and basis of allotment, which is one of the areas that we're looking at in terms of improving. I believe that it is something that the market appreciates, and it has been working quite well. I'd also like to take the opportunity to congratulate NCB Capital Markets. I usually don't use props. You will see here in terms of the basis of allotment disclosure information that was provided by NCB. It was very well done. I believe everyone in the market can look at this piece of information, which is critical to knowing what you would be receiving from your participation in an IPO. And we encourage all new participants, all new companies, all brokers to embrace this approach to ensure that the market continues to operate on a transparent and efficient manner. Ladies and gentlemen, I now present rules of the main market. And
Marlene said July, August, September, October. When he said that, I wonder if you are clairvoyant because something is about to happen, right? But we are doing our small part to help to widen, our market. This is what we know. This is what we do, and as best as is possible, we're doing our small piece to do that. Just to pick up on something that John had mentioned in terms of making it much easier for the small man to participate in these investment activities. So we have an ongoing campaign for persons to open accounts. We mainly use social media. So not only when we have an IPO coming, will you see all the advertisements about opening an account, but it's an ongoing process. Because we really feel that at the heart of the growth of any and every economy, the small man must participate. And John alluded to
the fact that, this is John, alluded to the fact that, you know, wealth is really created when one invests in the equities market, not just willy-nilly, but invest using advisors, credible advisors, and looking at companies that are, you know, will withstand the test of time. So we're doing our small part in that regard as well, and perhaps I should make mention that we were one of the pioneers to assist the stock exchange with having the accounts being released immediately. Right? We would have gone through a process with the stock exchange. So we're doing our small part. Anyway, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Why? One thing is consistent. We're soon finished. We're soon finished. So today, as you may know, marks the last day of the NCB Financial Group's year-end. And with this comes much reflection. We are thankful to those who have supported us throughout the year by availing themselves of the various services we provide, and particularly to our NCB Capital Markets clients who have allowed us to broker yet another deal, our third listing in 2 months. If this is anything to go by, then clearly Jamaica's appetite for investment opportunities in the local capital markets has grown, is growing, and with onset of a new year, we are confident that our investments will continue to flourish. Our partnership with the principals of QWI, Investments Limited, demonstrates our commitment to working with various businesses in the various stages in their life cycle. Indeed, not many young companies in Jamaica, and dare I say across the world, can mark their introduction to the main market with an initial public offer. You can clap. You would agree with me that the team at QWI, yes, provides a service that is necessary at this juncture, given the heightened interest in the local stock market, and with that, the increased need for guidance as it relates to investment opportunities. We can also all agree that the company is poised to do well, as their interests are very much aligned. And John made mention of the fact that no management fees and the other types of fees that companies like QWI would charge. So interests are aligned. So, ladies and gentlemen, with the interest being aligned with investors, we have given them this vote of confidence. Once again, another Jamaican company is set to make strides, exploring international markets in an effort to offer shareholders the value that they're deserving of. In this offer, we would have received north of $2 billion in funds. The offer was also upsized by 50% and yet still oversubscribed. Basically 100% more than what was planned. Over 4,700 investors would have applied, and that again speaks to the potential of our little but tallow investment fraternity. Congratulations to QWI. Oh, before I go there, I should also mention that we closed on the 18th, we opened on the 16th, closed on the 18th, and we're listed on the 30th. Less than 2 weeks. If you extract the 2 weekends, is 7 business days, right? If you want to get that granular. But congratulations to QWI principals who are now entrusted with the mammoth task of continuing to bring value to local investors, and we look forward to great things from them. I will also use this platform to praise the JSE, the JCSD, the registrar. I don't see Michelle. I know that Michelle would have worked up until about 1 o'clock in the morning trying to finalize the basis of allotment and making sure that shareholders' shares are actually in their accounts. So much kudos to Michelle, the JSE, the JCSD, and I've repeated it for a purpose. And of course, my team at NCB Capital Markets, anchored by Simone Hudson-Bernard, who has been stellar in the execution, the discussions, the negotiations of this transaction. teams would have worked tirelessly. Janet, your hair is lovely. That's so cute. So the teams would have worked tirelessly to make this transaction happen in record time. And speaking of record time, how was it completing your application in under 5 minutes? Anybody use a Go IPO in here, the platform? Great. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that's what the analytics from the Go IPO tool reveals. In just 5 minutes, investors were well on their way to securing their stake in QWI. Just 5 minutes. Innovation continues to be a brand pillar for us at NCB Capital Markets, and we want to encourage our counterparts to take advantage of our digital, hassle-free solution in vain of making life simpler and easier for the client. We could have done this a little bit earlier, but then we would have received physical applications which we had to transfer into electronic for submission. So again, calling on my counterparts in the market, and Johnny alluded to it, your voice travels much harder and faster than mine does, right? But it is very efficient, it is effective, and we are encouraging all brokers to use it. In closing, I'll leave you with this thought. It's not how much money you make, but how much money you keep, how hard it works for you, and how many generations you keep it for. Here's to you, QWI, and to the many generations for whom you will be securing wealth. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. It's remiss of me, I should have mentioned that the opening price for QWI, the first trade or second trade, hit the circuit breaker. That is a 50%. All right, so if that is any indication of things to come, it's a very good start. I just wanted to mention that.